I am a sinner and I am having a bit of a crisis of faith these days.
Hmm.
I have been going through the process of getting an annulment of my first marriage. And I have to
Good.
tell you, instead of like renewing my faith or leading me on a journey where I would feel closer to God and embrace things like Good Friday and Lent and Easter, it's been driving me in a different direction.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I want to show one of the most authentic and vulnerable clips that I have found on YouTube. Lord knows we need more of these types of clips. It's a conversation between Megan Kelly, the famous online personality, and Bishop Barron. As you saw from the intro, she's asking for some spiritual advice and guidance on what is really a touchy and sensitive subject for her and also for the church. Let's watch this viral clip together and interact with it.
I'm a Catholic, a lifelong Catholic, and I've been going through
Yeah.
something, and I really wrestled with whether I would raise it with you in this interview because this is about Good Friday and Easter, but I've been thinking about what you just said about what Good Friday means and being a sinner and where that takes me. And I just want to I'll outline it for you as follows. Maybe you can give me some guidance.
Hmm.
I have been going through the process of getting an annulment of my first marriage. I've been married to Doug now for, I don't know, 16 years. We just celebrated our wedding anniversary. But I never annulled my first marriage to my first husband, with whom I am still very friendly. He's a great guy, just didn't work out.
Hmm.
And he and I agreed, he's Catholic too, that we would try to get an annulment and he would marry, I would get married to Doug in a church and you know how that works. I'm not technically allowed to receive um, absolution and confession until I do this and so on and so forth. Well, I've been doing it. I'm going through the process and my priest is helping me. And I have to
Good.
tell you, instead of like renewing my faith or leading me on a journey where I would feel closer to God and embrace things like Good Friday and Lent and Easter, it's been driving me in a different direction. I
Hmm.
didn't even observe Lent this year. I did not go to church on Ash Wednesday. I'm feeling kind of emotional just talking about it. And
Hmm.
it's been like the in your face interjection of man in between your relationship with God that is getting to me.
I appreciate Megan Kelly's honesty and also her vulnerability to share some personal details. I can testify that some of the pent up emotions she is expressing and feeling are some that I have felt as well. I want to reflect on these emotions together and what they ultimately mean. I don't know if you perceived it or not, but she seems to be venting a little bit of bitterness towards the church. This bitterness is leading to what she terms is a crisis of faith, and this crisis of faith is making her doubt, and her faith seems to be dwindling a little bit. She specifically states this.
It, it's the it's been like the in your face interjection of man in between your relationship with God that is getting to me.
I find that to be an interesting view of what is causing the dwindling of her faith, the interjection of man into her relationship with God. Let me say that again. She believes it's the interjection of man into her relationship with God that is causing her to feel this tension, this dwindling, this crisis of faith. I can admit as well that this mindset has caused me to doubt my faith as well. However, I do believe it is a faulty theological lens that I had to overcome and I had to deal with. And let me explain what changed in my life. You see, the issue is never others or church processes or clerics examining our past. The issue always and forever will be our own sin. What causes us to doubt is a failure to hone up to our own faults. You see, sin is sneaky. It's like a slithery little snake in a garden. And it gets us to focus on others and their problems or how they're affecting us, or it can even make us run and hide from God by using our own faulty reasoning to do so. Remember the garden? Now, I'm not saying this to attack Mrs. Kelly at all. I'm just pointing something out that is universal to us all, and specifically to me, probably more so to me than to even Mrs. Kelly or any person that is watching this video. All of us use our sin to scapegoat. We try to find an answer to our sin outside of ourselves when really the problem is the sin within that can only be dealt by a savior. So I don't want you to miss that there is a real spiritual tension in this clip. In our modern society, we often think that being authentic, open, and honest means that we're dealing with something. But in reality, we have to get to the root of the issue, not just feel that our sin is an issue. So, Bishop Barron is going to respond. Let's see what he has to say and what we can learn from his response to Megan Kelly's pleading for spiritual guidance.
Yeah, there's so much we could say about it. And my first instinct really is that I shouldn't be talking to you about this because you should be talking to someone who's much closer to you and to the reality of the situation. So it's a sensitive pastoral matter. But I'll say just this. It's the church's deep respect for marriage that's behind that whole process. So that the church respects the sacramentality of marriage. And my instinct is, Megan, you're doing the right thing, and to be patient with the process and be patient with yourself. I think you're making the right move. The church respects marriage, and so it insists upon honoring marriage as much as possible. And so, as you know, in the annulment process, the determination ultimately is, a full sacramental marriage did not take place. And the church, out of respect for marriage, takes the time to make that judgment. But I would say trust the process and have patience with yourself as you're going through it. I get the feelings, and I've dealt with people over the years who are going through a similar process and often are trying to process the same feelings. So I get it. I get the experience of it. I would just urge you to be patient with yourself and with the process. And maybe don't judge the church too harshly. The church is trying to respect the integrity of marriage, and that's what stands behind it.
Think about these three things that Bishop Barron is saying. Firstly,
I shouldn't be talking to you about this because you should be talking to someone who's much closer to you and to the reality of the situation. So it's a sensitive pastoral matter.
this gets me thinking about how often we try to resolve our issues by seeking out superficial entities, whether it's an online counselor or a beer. As Bishop Barron says, it's a pastoral matter that has to involve those closest to Mrs. Kelly. But even further, I think there is a great spiritual truth in this. Too often we think we can solve our problems by running away rather than walking through the issue with those closest to us. The only way we can change is to actually go through the pain, which I think illumines the second thing Bishop Barron is saying.
But I would say trust the process and have patience with yourself as you're going through it. I get the feelings, and I've dealt with people over the years who are going through a similar process and often are trying to process the same feelings. So I get it. I get the experience of it. I would just urge you to be patient with yourself and with the process.
To change, we have to trust the process. If we give up, we don't experience the great fruit and benefit of what years of toil can produce. While Mrs. Kelly is enduring what seems like needless paperwork and it seems dull and pointless, sometimes it's precisely in these moments of mundaneness in the mundane that we can change the most. There is a great value in simply submitting to the system. We've forgotten that in modernity. We've forgotten that in our American lifestyles. Great growth can occur simply by obeying, even if it doesn't make sense. There's a great biblical wisdom in that concept. Simply trust and wait. Eventually, the process will be over and it'll be worth it.
It's the church's deep respect for marriage that's behind that whole process. So that the church respects the sacramentality of marriage. And my instinct is, Megan, you're doing the right thing, and to be patient with the process and be patient with yourself. I think you're making the right move. The church respects marriage, and so it insists upon honoring marriage as much as possible.
The third thing is the most important. Bishop Barron is presenting an argument that can be summarized like this: marriage is a sacrament that has to be honored. It would dishonor marriage if due process is not given. So while Mrs. Kelly is frustrated and is submitting to a victimhood mentality, as we can see from the clip, and be honest with yourself, as I am with myself, we've all been there, she really should not be seeing herself as a victim, but thankful that she is part of a community that takes God and what he says in his word about marriage seriously. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want you to come away from this video thinking I'm attacking Megan Kelly. That's not my intention at all. The point of this video is to point us and put ourselves in her shoes and realize that often we feel the same way as her, and often we succumb to the same temptation to see our sin and scapegoat. In light of this disposition, notice Bishop Barron's response, and this is what we can learn. 1, we should never play the victim when we sin. Rather, we should be thankful that the communal whole is protected. Number 2, never solve your issues by superficial means. Always go through the tough times of change and do so with the people closest to you. And 3, the sin nature in us likes to scapegoat. We like to find solutions that make our own faults not the problem. And of course, that is the biggest problem. So, this video is focused a lot on the bad news. But of course, the great news is that we are saved by Christ. Christ came to save sinners. And I am one of those, and so are you. So, let's just praise the Lord. All right, that's all I have for this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Remember that Christianity is Christ. Without him, there is no Christianity. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.